Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to welcome you all to this edition of the 49er Industry Chat Series. My name is Jenna Quinn, and it's my pleasure as the Assistant Director of Alumni and Affinity Engagement to welcome you all today to Baby Steps with Dr. Sonya Smith. Just so everyone is aware, this is recorded. So what that means for you is that this will be available for you to watch again, send to a friend or a colleague or anyone else you might think might get something good out of this. And it'll be available on our website at www.csulb.edu/alumni. And so now with that, I am so happy to introduce Sonya. Welcome, Sonya. Hi.
Good. Hello. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good to hear.
I'm excited to get into it. But let me just start off a little bit. I'll read off your bio just so folks can get to know a little bit more about you before we start.
Thank you.
So Dr. Sonya Smith joined the Los Angeles County Office of Education as the Director 3 of Student Support Services in 2021. As a Director 3, Dr. Smith oversees training and technical assistance in the areas of school safety and climate, physical and mental health and well-being, attendance and discipline, positive behavioral interventions and support for youth in foster care and those experiencing homelessness, as well as expanded learning programs. Prior to joining LACOE, Dr. Smith served the students and families of the Hawthorne School District for 35 years as an instructional aide, classroom teacher, teacher on special assignment and both site and district administrator. Dr. Smith is a fierce advocate for students and a compassionate servant leader. Dr. Smith earned her doctoral degree from CSULB in 2014 as a part of Cohort V and serves on the board of both LACOE chapter and Region 14 of the Association of California School Administrators. Sonya, that is an impressive bio for an impressive career.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's just get right into it then. And I'd love to start with a little bit of background about you. Can you tell me, what your life and your experiences were like before CSULB that kind of led you to CSULB?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned in my bio, I was hired as an instructional aide in 1986. And at that point, I didn't have any college knowledge. My parents didn't share that with me. And working alongside another instructional aide, I realized I was supposed to be an educator all my life. And part of that realization came from my very first job was tutoring a third grader when I was a ninth grader. His grandma needed somebody to help him in math and had to come from the top math class. So I said, sign me up. And then when I was at the community college trying to figure out what I was supposed to do, I was tutoring other students. So I started the journey to return back to school, but was married with 2 children by that time. So it was a 7 a.m. class and 3 part-time jobs and a 4:30 p.m. class at El Camino. And it took me a while to get through that. I was able to transfer to Cal State Dominguez Hills through the aide to teacher program. And part of that was I had to take 9 or more units and earn a B or better. And the B part was no problem. The 9 units I was a little concerned about, but I managed to earn my bachelor's degree in 1997, was able to start teaching on an emergency credential. And so I accepted a grant position that was focused on drug and violence prevention programming in 2001. And that's when I decided that I probably should pursue my administrative credential because a lot of the work I was doing was somewhat administrative, but again, didn't have the paper to back it up. And as I was finishing up my administrative credential, Cal State Long Beach was awarded the very first doctoral program. So my intent was just to go and clear my credential once I earned once I was hired into an administrative position. By the time that happened, my district was actually sending us to LACOE to clear credentials. So I was able to do it on the job essentially, but I didn't want time to pass without me at least trying to get into the doctoral program. And so I went ahead and applied, and I was accepted into Cohort 5, which started in the summer of 2011.
Wow. And, I think that, the doctoral program here at CSULB is one that it's a little bit of a lesser known gem, just because it's so new. I mean, there are a few more cohorts since then, but still very relatively a young program. Um, what was it like being a part of a relatively young program, and what was your student experience? You were already you're already in the field doing the work, but what was the student experience like?
Yeah, it was super exciting to be accepted into the cohort. And, because I was in the field, folks were expected to be working full time in the field. And so that was a challenge, getting out at the end of the school day, rushing to campus and having to park way over there and hike way over there to get to class. And so, sometimes a little bit stressful, but at the end of the evening, it was close to home. So that was a bonus. I really appreciated the cohort model. So they admitted 30 students. Half of them come from the pre-K through 12 realm, and the other half come from the higher education realm. So having that blended model where we took some courses together, we took other courses separately, and we were just able to bond and learn and appreciate differences. And it made for such a rich experience. Another real plus was our pro seminar advisors. So it's kind of like homeroom, if you will. So
Oh,
everybody's in this common homeroom, and we have two advisors, one from each of the different levels, and they stick with you through the entire process. And they're really developing your skills, not only as a researcher, but they're working to hone where you might go into the dissertation research eventually, and really encouraging you to keep your options open. Don't set yourself on qualitative versus quantitative, and don't select a topic right away, because you're going to hear things that change. And absolutely true, because I'm math science trained, and there was no way I was going to do a qualitative research project, and I ended up doing exactly that, partly through some of the projects that we did, where the richness of the interview and the case study, and then the encouragement of some of the professors that would say, wow, this is impressive, you really should consider qualitative. And so having that feedback and that encouragement. I'd say another big positive for me was just the dissertation chair. And they're meant to guide you and really stretch you, challenge you, make your research and your dissertation a product that will benefit the field. But life took a little unexpected turn for me, in that the day after I defended my proposal, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And so my chair took on a whole separate role of just that care, the concern, and making sure that I knew she had my back. And there were times where I needed some support from campus counseling, and she made sure that I had that referral. And then just a week before I was supposed to turn in my final draft, my brother-in-law died unexpectedly. I was able to text her and talk to her, and she said, just go take care of what you need to take care of. We are going to make this okay on our side. And so just from the start to the finish, just having that support of my cohort mates, as well as the faculty there, my chair in particular, it really made such a rich experience, and just something that I am so proud of, especially with the hurdles at the end that I had to overcome.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm so sorry that, that ended up being your experience. I but also so glad that your beach family was there for you. I mean, are your, do your cohort mates, peers and professors, are they folks that you still keep in touch with as you continue in your career?
Yes, absolutely. And, everybody was in education in some way. I was the only administrator, and especially from the small district that I was coming from in the field. A lot of them were counselors. And then there were some that were, again, at the college level. So they were doing different things. And we keep in touch. And I ran into one of them here at a LACOE event in January, and she's now on the school board of this local district that we support. So like, hey, this is fabulous. So, you have stayed connected with some and have reconnected with others. So it's been a lot of fun to go through that with them, and they continue to support me,
Yeah, that's
socially and
awesome.
emotionally.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that that's the case. Um, so you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about your background, but your journey into the education space. Um, it sounds like it was something that both you kind of fell into and felt as though you really had belonged in it. Can you tell us a little bit about, what that journey, knowing that this is what you wanted to pursue as a career was like?
Yes, yeah. So I come from a family of five siblings, and my parents were born and raised in a whole different time and concept, and so college was not ever something that was discussed when I was growing up. And I remember going home to my mom. It's like, I want to be a medical doctor, and she just looked at me. It's like, well, who's going to pay for that? So that was the extent of the college talk. So I thought, well, okay, I guess an RN is pretty close to medical doctor, and let me give that a try, because I just, didn't have the guidance in high school that other folks did that were taking AP courses and things like that. So I did start out at community college, and I was nursing major, and then I had an auto accident and I had to drop out. And it just, by that time I had a young daughter, and just, needed something to do, really. And that's when I went and applied to the district and was hired as a middle school instructional aide, and was doing small group reading instruction as well as math, because I was one of the few aides that could do that well. And actually taught while the or the principal at the time was sitting in the back of the classroom, because the teacher wouldn't show up sometimes. And so I would teach the class with his certificated supervision, and he'd walk out at recess saying, "Nice job, Smith." And so I knew I had it in me to be able to do that. It was just a matter of, how do I get this done with everything else that's going on? And so, like I said, it took me, I was 12 years as an instructional aide before I was able to get my degree in order to be able to teach my own class. And then just kept going from there, getting the credential, the master's degree, and then eventually the administrative and doctoral degree. Um, so it was just, like I said, with the baby steps, it comes from an autobiographical poem that I wrote when I was at El Camino. And it's like, how on earth am I ever going to move forward? I can't even afford to go to university. And so it was just this reminiscent of when I was a little girl. All I could I just wanted to go to school. I couldn't wait to go to school along with my three siblings, And then as I got into the field, it was just kind of like that baby learning to walk, where you just, fits and starts, and things just don't seem right. You got to hang on to things for help and that type of thing. But eventually they're running out the door. So,
And of course life, right? The different obstacles that have you've seen get in, in your path, and yet still manage to continue forward.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I love that. Um, and just with that, I'd love to ask you about, like, with the work that you're doing now. Um, what does a typical day look like? What are you focusing on the day today? And if somebody wanted to be, in educational administration, like what would they expect their day to day to be like?
Yeah. Well, I'm in the field of student support services. If you're looking at educational administration overall, you just have to be knowledgeable about a lot of different areas. And because you're an instructional leader, but there's so much more in education than instruction. In student support services especially, there's the discipline piece of it. But before the discipline, there's the level setting and helping students understand what is right and what is not, and in a way that is caring. And so there's the relationship building, the trust building that has to come into that. So at the site and district level, educational administration is kind of frazzled sometimes, and my former boss used to say your calendar is merely a suggestion, because if a student has a weapon on campus or something, you have to drop and run and go take care of that. I've taken calls at 11 o'clock at night as the district administrator. In my current role, it's shifted a little bit. So all the work that I used to do at Hawthorne in the district level, overseeing student support services, I now have my 6 teams that provide that training and technical assistance. So I have more of a leadership role where a lot of my day is spent managing those projects, meeting with the leadership, not just mine, but above me as well. Meeting with educational partners. We have a huge $85 million behavioral health project going on right now. It's through Department of Healthcare Services, and we're working with the Medi-Cal Managed Care Plans and Department of Mental Health to really develop partnerships and build infrastructure to better support students' behavioral health. And so this has taken up a lot of my time over the past 3 years, and we're in the midst of 4 different project plans that have multiple components to them. And we meet with the different partners on a very frequent basis, sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. I had a 3-hour meeting today that was a kickoff for a new billing structure centered around reimbursements for behavioral health for students. Another big piece here at LACOE is the system of support. So there's the California School Dashboard, which shows how districts and schools are doing with regard to student achievement, attendance, and discipline. And districts that aren't faring as well become eligible for differentiated assistance. And so I'm one of the leads with system of support to make sure that we ask what are their focus areas and how can we help? Can we help with data analysis? Can we help with some universal supports in place? Let's look at restorative practices for your young people as opposed to the exclusionary discipline, those types of things. So it's a variety, from the 6 units, 6 different bodies of work that are all interrelated in some way, but folks don't always see that connection. So I would see myself as a connector, not only with people, but with programs.
Yeah. Well, so as someone who manages so many different, very large projects with so many different teams, it's a big job, and it can definitely be daunting or overwhelming. But especially and especially as someone who's had life, definitely have obstacles for them. What does that work-life balance look like now? And what does it look like, throughout your career? And how have you balanced it? And what are some of the strategies that you found, kind of how what are the rules you live by?
Yes. I think educators overall are kind of notorious for not taking care of themselves as well as they should. We're very used to taking care of other people, especially little people. And so I will admit that I struggle with that. When I was raising my own 2 children, we would set out on a daily basis with a car packed for not only school and work, but also soccer practice or church or, some other engagement. And it wasn't unusual for us to be out for 12 hours a day. And so it's, you have to know your limitations. You do have to set boundaries. One thing that really helps me is I would get up early and I spend time in a devotional and doing some meditation, and then I go to the gym and I get a workout in early in the morning. And that way, no matter what the day throws at me, I can say I've accomplished this and I am healthier for it. It helps both my physical and mental health. And I do set aside time on the weekend to participate in other activities, reconnect with some people from Hawthorne, reconnect with some folks from Beach, and just try to be as social as I can with the limited time that I have.
Yeah, and managing such large teams and such large projects. I mean, what is that, and how has maybe your things that you've learned from the beach or things that you've just learned from your career, how has that prepared you for having such a large role?
I consider myself very humble, and I think some of that comes not just from my upbringing, but I started as an aide, and oftentimes folks don't give classified staff the credit that they deserve. They treat them differently. They look at them differently. And I think of, because where I started and how hard I had to work to become certificated, I have a different mindset with that. And so I think that really translated into the servant leadership that I spoke of in my bio. And I would never ask anybody to do something that I would not do myself, whether it's picking up trash or moving books or anything else like that. And the other big piece is the relationships. I pride myself in connecting with people and building relationships and helping to build the trust. So I have 6 fabulous leaders. And some of those leaders are people that when I was at the district, I was coming to get advice from and I was learning from. And so I just want to cultivate in them the leadership capacity. I want them to make decisions. I want them to really feel empowered to be the best person that they can be when it comes to serving the people that work with them. And so that's all. Some people may see that as kind of a hands-off thing, or maybe, you don't want to make the hard decisions or things like that. And, when I have to, if I need to discipline somebody, I do it. If I need to make a quick decision, I do it. But I want folks to feel like they can come to me, they can share with me, regardless of whether it's something personal or it's a professional concern. And I just want them to know that I care about them. And those are all, you learn that. I mean, education is it's a caring role. And so I think that's really why we are where we are. And certainly the experiences within the doctoral program where I had such good care and support and was linked to resources, I think that has all translated into who I am today and how I lead.
That's great. What would you say is the most challenging part of your position?
Politics, for sure. And when this position came available, I took the job description to my former superintendent, and she looked at it and she said, "There's nothing on here you can't do." And I said, "But it's a lot of politics, and I don't like politics." And she said, "Well, but you handle the board well." And so it's education itself is quite political, but being in student support services where we have some of the the transgender rights and the discipline, looking at whether a student is vaping or something like that. And some people would think, well, we just need to suspend them and let's talk about expelling them. But there's so many other means of correction that you could look at. And so it's really the political nature of the job, I think, that makes it the most challenging. And just sometimes you do have to be on the run. Something happens, a parent comes in to complain, somebody's calling the superintendent, you got to troubleshoot, and you got to be diplomatic about it and not let it ruffle your feathers.
Yeah. Oh, I imagine that can be, really difficult dealing with, shifting sands often, right? And the politics of the day, but also the politics of, of the people.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, so, on the other side of that coin, what is the most rewarding part of your job?
Mhm. I think for me, it's being here every day, being able to go out amongst the team and just connect with them. And again, connecting with them on both a personal level, wanting to know how they're doing and looking into their eyes and seeing, is what they're saying translating through that eye contact, paying attention to what they're saying. One day I asked somebody, "How are you today?" And she says, "I'm overcoming." And that's not a typical response.
No.
So I leaned in and said, "Oh, would you like to tell me more about that?" And she shared that she was enduring some personal struggle at that point. And so just making that connection and helping people understand that you do care, that even though I may have to run somewhere, I'm going to come back to you, and we're going to get through this. And even if I have to discipline somebody, I still care about you as a person. Just how you're behaving now is not acceptable, and we need to correct this, and let's work on doing it. But I want to do it alongside you. I'm not trying to top down dictate something. I'm just going to say, this is how it's impacting us. This is how we need to change it. What do you need for me to help you get where you need to be?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like, in your position, like that people first mentality is just so prevalent, right? And it kind of leads me to, ask you, what is the role of mentorship in your field?
Mhm.
How important is it? Who are your mentors, and, do you mentor anyone?
Thank you. Yes. Mentorship is huge. You think about education, when you are going to become a teacher, you have a master teacher who, they play several roles, but at the essence, it's like a mentor. It's somebody that's helping you learn the craft, helping you improve your practice. And I think at any level, you're going to need somebody in that role. And I was very fortunate that that principal that I mentioned that would watch me, supervise me as I was teaching the class, years later, he became my boss, my direct boss, when I got to the district level. So he trained me for a year to take over in his position as he was transitioning out to retirement. And it was, the funny story is he works for me now. He actually works through LACOE. So
Wow. I mean, I feel
I'm now
like
kind of his boss. So
I feel like that's mentorship, just, through the roof mentorship. Mentor someone to be your boss one day.
yes, definitely. And so, he, when I was training with him for that year, he not only taught me the job, but he taught me the craft, the how-tos and the what not to do's. And he was my boss when my husband passed. And, I went into him, and I would share with him, of course, the journey and how things were happening. And the day I went to him to tell him that I think I needed to take some time off to be with my husband, I walked in and he's like, "Why are you here? You need to be at home." So I was like, "Oh, glad we can have this conversation." So, they have your back in multiple ways. Again, there's that caring component that comes in. And so I've been fortunate to mentor some students who are in our juvenile camps and halls. as we have this program during the summer where they meet with you virtually a couple times a week for a few weeks over the summer, and talking about very similar types of things like we're talking about today. And they're matched with you because they're interested in the field. And so just getting to share with them that it's not always easy, and sometimes you're not always where you want to be, but you got to believe in yourself. You got to use your resources and supports that are available to you, and you can make it happen. Stick to it.
Yeah, for sure. And also similar to mentoring, but I'm curious about networking. I hear that education is a small world, even though it's such a big part of everyone's lives. But what does networking look like in the field? And is it something that's really important? Should folks who are interested, be looking to sharpen that muscle?
Yeah, networking is definitely important, especially as you get up into the district and then the county levels. And you think about with the county, we're supporting 80 districts and over 350 charter schools. And so there's a lot of learning that can take place, not only for me and my team, but amongst those leaders within those local education agencies. And so and just they talk about sharing is caring. Educators are well known to, oh, can I use that? Can I borrow that? Can I copy that? It's been going on for years. We share teaching resources, and we share other tips and tools of the trade. I have a meeting later today with Orange County Department of Education because they're also involved in this large behavioral health project. And our last call, she said, hey, I'm putting together this matrix of these vendors that could help us with this. And I said, well, we were getting ready to embark upon that same thing. Can we partner up on that? So keeping your ears open and just, again, being open-minded and being willing to listen and not be afraid to ask if you need to.
No, that's great. Um, and I think that education is also one of those fields that is always expanding, always changing and evolving. I know that you're working on a lot of really important projects right now, but it's sort of a big question, but like, what's next? Where do you think that, the realm in your field, what do you think still needs to be done? What work still needs to be done? And what do you hope is next?
Yes. I hope for a mindset shift. It's interesting right now is in my shop, we oversee expulsion appeals. And so students who have been expelled from their district can appeal to us. And in my team, we have the responsibility to hear it and make a recommendation to the board, which makes the final decision. And we're really seeing that folks are not taking the time to really help the young people consider their actions and the impact of their actions and how they might have chosen a different route, and are instead excluding them from the district. And that's so damaging to the relationship, to the social and emotional well-being of the child, and to the family, and really the community, entire school community. And there are some people that would say, well, we can't tolerate misbehavior. You come into my class, you act the way I need you to act, you do what I need you to do. But we have to remember that these are young people who are still developing, who have suffered through the effects of the pandemic, which we're still seeing it. And so I hope that there's going to be this mindset shift, that we've preached it, that teaching behavior is as important as teaching academics. And when a student is struggling in reading, you don't put them out of your classroom. You provide additional support. You assess, you see what they need for extra support. We should be doing the same thing with the young people with behavior. We should be taking a look at what's going on. What might be the root cause? Is there some trauma in their background? Is there something acute that's happening? And what can we put in place? There's a function to every behavior. What's the function? I doubt very highly that a student came into your room this morning thinking, you know what, I'm just going to make this the worst day of your life. That probably wasn't the case. And so there's something going on. And that compassion and empathy starts with the relationship building. And so my constant message to people is we have to develop solid relationships. We have to help the young people trust so that they can come to us when they're starting to feel that anger well up, or when they are considering something that may not be healthy. And then let's help them. Let's talk through the restorative questions and ask them, what were you thinking about? What have you thought about since? How have your actions impacted others? And what needs to happen to make it right? Because that's how they are going to learn and grow and develop into more productive citizens. That's how they're going to develop empathy. And at the end of the day, in my opinion, empathy is at the core of what we need in order to be better humans.
Yeah. I mean, those honestly profound.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, in the same vein of the what's next kind of thing, one of the things we like to ask about to folks in every industry, because this is a topic that seems to be impacting just about every industry. What role do you see AI, artificial intelligence, playing in this space? And is it good? Is it bad? And how do you think it'll continue to impact your field?
Mhm. Yeah. In the field of education itself, I remember when I first started hearing about ChatGPT and AI, and I thought back to the days where I was a high school administrator and students would get in trouble for plagiarism. And I was like, oh, that must be making it a nightmare for them. But it has its benefits as well. I think, like anything, we need to embrace the challenge. That was another mentor that I had, a good friend and former principals, when we were back in the No Child Left Behind days and we were in program improvement, and it was very punitive and sanctioned. And she said, we just need to embrace the challenge. And so I think that's the same with AI, is it's not all bad. There's some unknowns to it. And anytime something changes, we want to kind of run like our hair's on fire, but there we have to take a look. And again, what is this really about? Could this be a benefit to us? And use it to our advantage. In student support services world, outside of the plagiarism, which, fortunately, people aren't expelling students for that. We don't deal with it a lot, but certainly within our educational technology sector, they have a huge initiative here at LACOE, and are trying to help educators understand the nuances of it and how to just, again, embrace it and let's use it to our advantage.
Well, thank you. So what advice might you have for anyone coming from the beach, just starting their careers, or just thinking about what's next, or entering this field? What advice would you have for them?
If your only interest is having summers off, don't do it. The summers off are nice. Yes, you can get that second job. But when you're teaching young people, regardless of whether they're a transitional kindergartner, a middle schooler, or a high schooler, they're going to challenge you. especially at certain stages of their life, because they're trying to learn, they're asserting their identity, they're coming into their own. So consider, do you have a passion for the profession itself? It's one thing to love math or English or something and want to go teach that, but the students are unique and they bring all these different challenges. And there may be a day where something happens and you're not teaching anything, you're just being there for them. And so you have to have a passion for the young people first and foremost. And the content will come. Just being willing to, again, connect with them, to build those relationships. Because I've had people flat out tell me, my job is to teach history, it's not to build relationships. But I hate to tell you, you're not going to be doing much teaching of history if you don't have a relationship. And so that comes with greeting the student by name, asking how they're doing today, looking into their eyes. And again, does it match? When they say, I'm fine, is that what their eyes say? And if not, offering some resources, offering some support of some kind. And again, it's about, everything is about the education. You're going to teach, you're going to reteach, you're going to practice, you're going to do all those components. Take that mindset to everything within education, because especially depending on what level you're at. You have a self-contained classroom at elementary school, well, you're with them all day. It's important that you get to know them, and you will reap the benefits. It's just making sure that you are empathetic towards them and you get to understand who they are and what they might have gone through. And if you can do that, your teaching piece is going to be so much more valuable. Your time is going to be much better spent. And then, once you get into the administration, just the higher up you go, the more alone you become, because there's one principal or maybe a couple of co-principals or something. I mean, I'm one director 3 of student support services here at LACOE. I have a partner in crime, but there's nobody else at this level within this particular division. So making sure that you don't isolate yourself, that you do continue to network, to reach out, to be that kind human to other people so that they can reciprocate when you really need it.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, some great advice.
Thank
Well,
you.
I can't believe it, but we've blown through this time, this chat. This is, we're getting towards the end here. And with that, there is a question that I always like to ask folks at the end, which is, if you had a time machine or perhaps a magic wand, whatever you'd like to call it, and you were, I know it wasn't that long ago, but if you were able to go back to when you were leaving the beach, graduating, what one piece of advice would you like to give yourself?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm going to go back to when I was at the beach. I wish I had participated more in some of the activities. So one of the most fun times I have right now is going to the pyramid for the volleyball matches. And I was on hand when they had their back-to-back championships in 18 and 19. And had I known then what I know now, had I had the time then like I do now, and just to enjoy the experience, take it in. You don't get that second chance to go back and do it necessarily. And so, when my husband was close to passing, he says, I'm not afraid to die and I have no regrets. And so that no regrets piece, I think, is I'll leave that as the advice. Live with no regrets.
Live with no regrets. Well, that is beautiful. And I think possibly one of my favorite answers to that question. So Awesome. Well, Sonia, thank you so much for taking the time. I think that there was a lot in here that folks who are interested in this path can get from. So thank you so much. Um, for those of you who have tuned in, I want to say thank you as well. Again, this is going to be recorded. This is recorded, so this will be available online at www.csulb.edu. CSULB, www.csulb/alumni. Excuse me, my apologies. But also feel free to reach out to us anytime. Follow us on social media. We're at CSULB alumni. And yeah, make sure that you don't miss the next one. But Sonia, if folks wanted to maybe keep in touch with you and maybe reach out, continue the conversation, how might they be able to get in touch with you?
Oh, happy to entertain any kind of questions and, mentorship opportunity, networking opportunities. So I'm at Sonya Smith, so SONYASMITHEDD@gmail.com.
Awesome. I love that the EDD is in there.
Well, I had to add it to be able to get something because Sonya Smith apparently is pretty popular,
Probably a common name.
but I can't complain.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. And for all of you who are tuning in, thank you as well. And we hope to see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.